You're listening to the Epic Living Podcast with Jim Simcoe. I'm Jim Simcoe, and I'm here to help you make your life epic. So let's get rolling. Hey, this is Jim Simcoe. Welcome to the podcast, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys today. Today, our topic is all about building great friendships and being able to give great advice. And the topic actually comes from a listener, Robbie McGee. So this podcast is actually dedicated to you, Robbie McGee. Thank you for writing in a question about this topic and wanting to hear more about it. And I encourage anyone else who's listening, if you ever have anything you want me to talk about, by all means, email me at jim@epicallday.com, and I will talk about it on the air. As long as it's something that makes sense for everyone else, I would be happy to talk about it. So I was really stoked to get Robbie's email, and so let's get going. So this is all about how to build great friendships and give great advice. So the very first thing to think about is that, there are really 4 ways to tell if you have a great friendship and if you are in a situation where, you've got a great friend. Because obviously we all have a lot of acquaintances and know a lot of people. And really, at the end of the day, Facebook friends they're just people you know. They're not necessarily your close friends. Some are friends, some, most are not. So there are 4 ways to tell if you have a true friendship. And the first thing is that you're both honest with one another, and you can be honest with that person and not be afraid of being honest with that person. That's the first way to tell if you're in a true friendship. The second way is that you can tell is if you are both non-judgmental of the other person. So if you're not super judgy of each other and, no matter what happens, you're still there as friends, then that's one way to tell that you're in a great friendship. Third way is that that person is a safe harbor in the storm. So you can go to that person with just about anything, and they're always going to support you. They're always going to back you up, no matter what the problem is, whatever's going on. And then the fourth way really is that they're rooting for your success. So they're actually genuinely happy when you have something that happens to you. And this one is an interesting one for me. I've seen a lot of people, in my life when I've had successes who were really happy for me and really stoked about something that was going on in my life. But then I also had other friends who I thought I was really close to who, when I would share successes or they knew about some award or some bonus I'd gotten or whatever. And, they really weren't that thrilled. And I found out, they really weren't that good of a friend to me. And I realized after a short time that wow, this person's really not that interested in my long-term success. So, and I'll give you an example of the exact opposite of that. I have a very good friend in New York who is who's in the telecommunications business, who is one of my college roommates. His name is John. I won't say his last name. Some of you may know who he is. Back when he was in telecom, we both were in telecom in the early 90s, he used to make a ton of money. And when he made money, he would call me and he would, tell me about his bonus, or he'd tell me about some, trip or award he had. And I was genuinely happy for him. I was really stoked for him. I was like, all right, this is awesome. one of my buddies is making great money. That's just a great thing in the world. And I was really, really happy for John. And when I got into back then, it's 1,000 years ago, when I got into the telecom industry as well, and I started making great money and started winning awards and that sort of thing, and I would tell John about it, I could tell he was genuinely happy about my success. He really was stoked about it and was like, wow, man, that's awesome. And that is just a good friendship right there. And John, who ended up going through some challenging times and ended up going into AA and coming out of AA, and he's stronger and better than he's ever been coming out of AA. When he came out of AA, when he came out of his challenging times, I'm trying to edit this as much as possible. If you can't tell, that's why I'm going but when John came out and kind of came out of the dark tunnel that he was in, I was really, really stoked and really, really, really happy for him. And I know that he feels the same way about anything I've ever gone through. And you can tell that that's a true friendship. And I never talked to the guy. Neither one of us are people who are going to sit on the phone and talk to each other. But if he called me up right now and was like, hey, I'm stuck in a Mexican jail and I need 10 grand and I need you to fly me down here and help me bury a body, I would get on the next plane without a doubt. So anyway, those are some of the ways to tell about whether or not you have a true friendship or not. And really, when you think about people in your life who would be more like your fake friends or your acquaintances, you know, at the end of the day, they only have their best interests in heart, right? They don't have your best interests in heart. Sometimes you'll see that it comes out and that they're jealous of your success, or that they'd like to see you fail, or that they, get a sort of a hidden pleasure when you're going through rough times. A lot of that has to do with, the fact that misery loves company. I'm sure you've heard that before. So when you're not doing well, it gives them the okay that, if they're not doing well, then that makes it okay. So those are more your fake friends and your acquaintances. So it's really important to be able to judge and tell the difference between the two. And I'm a big proponent. Like, I know a lot of people from all the different stuff I do in my my career and everything else. And I got to say, like, I've got 3 or 4 really, really, really strong, good friends, and then I have a bunch of people that I know. So I don't think it's a matter. I don't think you need to be best friends with 30 people. I think if you're best friends more than 3 or 4 people, then then it drops off significantly after that. So anyways, that's a big difference. How to tell the difference between a true friend and someone who's just an acquaintance. And now here's the thing. So how do you build a great friendship? So a great friendship is really, in a lot of ways, built organically, right? And it's built organically through shared experiences and bonding things that you go through. And I can tell you that one of my best friends in the world, Jim Egan, who I've talked about before, we became really great friends because when we were in college, we one night decided to start a band, and the name of our band was Bafa Bafa. Now, I don't know how to play any musical instruments, and Jim only knew how to play drums. So it was quite an interesting band because we weren't very good, although the crowd loved us because they liked the fact that, we would kind of take our shirts off, dive into the crowd, hang from the ceiling, and play Chili Peppers songs. So, we had a lot of crowd enthusiasm, even if we were not great musicians. But going through those experiences together were really bonding experiences because neither one of us were super comfortable playing music, and neither one, we were both probably scared of it, and we both were, but we both did it together. And we've had other experiences, and we've gone to Hawaii together. I've helped him with his marriage. He's helped me with my marriage. We've just been, we've gone through a lot of different things together over the times. So bonding and sharing experience is really one of the biggest ways to build a great friendship. And then another way to build a great friendship that you can do, that doesn't have to happen over 20 years or so, is if you just do, if you have shared successes. So if you've had shared experiences, shared successes. And I can tell you as an example, and I've talked about this before, but I play in a football league, and I play on a team called the Bearcats. So I've been playing on a team called Bearcats for the last several years. And a couple of years ago, we won the Super Bowl in our league. And it may not seem like a big deal to anybody else, but you'd be amazed how, you get a group of 40, 50 adult men together competing to play football, and it becomes kind of a serious thing. But anyway, so we really didn't have a good chance in the Super Bowl that we were playing again, and I've talked about this in the previous podcast. We were not expected to win. We actually had a guy on the other team talking smack to us when we were walking on the field, but we actually ended up winning. We all pulled together as a team. So the guys on that team, I will always be great friends with the guys on that team because we went through this experience together that, even though it was just like a football game, it was a really big deal for all of us. And and that's shared successes. Like, I'll always look at, my buddy Jeff and my buddy Mike and my buddy Clay, my buddy John, the guys from the football team. I always look at them differently, and I always cherish those memories, and I always think of those guys as great friends because of what we were able to accomplish together. So sharing successes is another way to build a great friendship. One of the other ways, so if that's the way that friendships grow, if they grow organically over experiences, either through bonding or shared successes, there are other ways to build a great friendship. And one of them is to be loyal, right? So loyalty, look, I'm Italian, so loyalty is a big deal to me anyway, no matter what it is. But loyalty in a friendship is so crucial. Like, you have to be loyal to the other person. And if someone's not being loyal to you, I would tell you that's probably the very first thing that would tell you that, that person's not a true friend to you. So you got to be loyal to the other person. The second thing is you can't judge them. Okay, so we talked about that before, but like, you cannot judge somebody. If they're really your true friend and you really respect their values and love them as a person, then you're not going to judge them. Okay. Another way to build a great friendship is to give great advice, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. And you got to recognize that in every friendship, there's going to be a fork in the road, and you're either going to grow tighter or it's all going to fall apart. I don't care what friendship you have. I don't care if you are 19. I don't care if you're 70. Every friendship you have, you get to a fork in the road and you either grow tighter or it just falls apart. And I'll give you 2 examples. When I was in college, talking about that band we were in, Jim and I were in this band, and we had another guy in the band who was kind of more of a serious musician. His name was Jimmy. And he, at one point in time, got the other members of the band together, and he wanted to kick me out of the band because I was a singer, but I really didn't have any musical ability. My ability was really to get the crowd going and to really have a good time on stage, which the crowd appreciated. But he didn't like it because I just wasn't a very good singer. I wasn't very melodic, which I'm trying to say this with a straight face because I am arguably the worst. I don't know what I'm worse at. I could be worse at singing or dancing. I don't know if there's if awful and worst, which of the two would be the most awfully worse out of those two of my abilities. But anyway, so at that point in time, Jimmy was trying to start this coup within our band to kick me out of it. And if you're confused, there was a Jimmy in our band, a Jim Simcoe in our band, and a Jim Egan in our band. So there are 3 Jims and a guy named Ed. But anyway, so the point of that story is like, at that point in time, my friendship with Jim Egan faced a fork in the road, because it would have been extremely easy for Egan to say, well, yeah, we'll just we'll kick Simcoe out of the band and we'll just keep going because we were getting pretty popular. And Jim said no. Jim Egan said, no, we're not doing that. Jim and I started this band. Screw you. You leave the band. And he ended up leaving the band, and we got another guy, Joe Paradise, Pizza Slice Paradise, and we just kind of kept rocking. So that was one of those forks in the road between my friendship with Jim, and I will always respect him for that. And I saw, some of those traits of great friendship in there, in the sense that he was extremely loyal to me. He was not judging me as a person or judging my abilities. And we both recognized that was a fork in the road, and he chose to stick with me rather than go with this Jimmy guy. So anyway, that is, that's a great example, I think, of recognizing when the fork in the road occurs. And I'll give you another example of, I had another friend who used to come, who came to visit me, or came to Los Angeles when I was living in Los Angeles. Someone else I'd gone to college with, and I won't say his name. But he came to visit, and we were supposed to get together that weekend. And he ended up staying with some girl the whole weekend. And I probably called the guy like 500 times because, during college, he was one of my best friends. And he just never called me back. And so then I finally got him on the phone, like on that Sunday. And I'm like, dude, like, what the hell, man? You're supposed to come down here, supposed to hang out. I haven't seen you in a year. Like, what's up? And we kind of got in this argument on the phone, and he ended up hanging up on me. And I'll never forget that. Like, the guy, this is like, we're 25 years old or whatever it is. And he hung up on me. And quite honestly, like, that was a fork in our friendship. And although I'm still friends with the guy, like, I'll never be as close to him as I was before that happened. Because to me, that was just like, we got to that fork in the road, and he kind of made a decision. We both kind of made a decision, like, this friendship isn't, what we both thought it was. So let's just move on, which is also totally fine. So it's very interesting just to recognize when the fork in the road occurs and what to do about it. So another way to build a great friendship for your friends is you got to be there, and you got to show up in tough times. So, and being there for someone else is so important for your own success, because it makes you a better person. Because, you give a favor, and sometimes, a person will feel indebted to you, and they'll help you out when they need to. And it allows you to build friendships in really unlikely ways. And I had, excuse me, an ex-boss of mine, Mary Delaney, who I love dearly out of Chicago, once told me that she's a great friend when the chips are down, and she's a horrible friend when times are good. And I always thought that was really funny. And so her thing was like, look, I'm never going to remember your birthday. I'm not going to send you cards. I'm going to go months and months without calling you. But if you ever need something, I'll be there for you. And I've always thought about that. She told me that in 2000. And I've always thought about that. I always thought that was so cool. That's actually a really good point. I'm there for you when the chips are down, but when times are tough, but you may not get the Christmas card from me. And I thought that was awesome. I always thought that was just such a cool way to look at a friendship. So Mary, I think you're awesome. You were a great boss, and that was probably the best thing you've ever said to me. So I thought that was awesome. So anyway, and again, like I was talking about before, you can build friendships in really unlikely ways. When you're there and you show up in tough times. I'll give you another example of one that I always find is kind of funny, and it was an example of a tough time that really wasn't a tough time. I used to be a really big April Fool's guy and really into, doing April Fool's jokes. And I don't know why. Probably it's the 8-year-old inside of me that's always dying to come out. But anyway, when I lived in Los Angeles, I had a very good friend. His name was Dennis. And on April Fool's, I called him up one time. And for some reason, I was like, hey, man, I'm in jail. I'm in downtown LA. It's a really long story, but I got in this huge fight, which is really funny because anyone who knows me, I've never been in a fight in my life. I've been in one fight in my life, and it was during a lacrosse game in college. But so I called Dennis, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm in jail. I got in a fight. I'm in a lot of trouble. And this is in 1994. And I was like, I'm in a lot of trouble. Is there any way you can come down here? But I need $5,000. I need you to be able to bail me out. They're not going to let me go without $5,000, and I can't tell you what's going on. And Dennis at the time was like, I would say he was a decent friend of mine. I mean, I knew him through some other people. And it was crazy. Like on the phone, he was like, you got it, man. I'll be down there in an hour. He's like, let me just run to the bank. I got to go to the bank first to get the money, and I'll be down there in an hour. And I was like, holy moly, man, this is freaking crazy. Like, I can't believe these guys were willing to do that. And then I finally told him it was April Fool's Day, and we had a great laugh over it. But I always thought that was fantastic. Like, this guy was ready to go to bat for me, even though, I ended up not needing it. But I ended up becoming really good friends with Dennis, largely based on that experience. Largely because I was like, wow, man, this guy's like totally in my corner, totally loyal, not judging me, not doing any of that, and he's totally willing to help me out. And I thought, I just kind of knew him. So sometimes that stuff comes up, and it's it's kind of a bonus. So I always thought that one was cool. So anyway, so that's how you can tell a good friendship, and that's some of the ways to build a good friendship. And one of the biggest ways to build a good friendship and a great friendship is to really be able to give great advice, because we all need advice. And this is something that Robbie had mentioned in his email to me, and so I want to give you some tips on giving great advice to somebody. Just based on the advice that I've given out in the past, kind of what I've seen has been good advice, and what I've seen has been not good advice. And so the very first thing is you have to be able to listen to the other person, okay? You have to be slow to speak, which is incredibly tough for me. Anybody who knows me knows that getting me to shut up for more than 5 minutes is just somewhat challenging. But anyway, so be slow to speak. Make sure you're really clear about what they're saying and what they're asking for. So you want to confirm what they're asking you, and really try and figure out what type of advice or support that they need. So do they just need to vent? Do they have a problem that they have that they can't seem to solve that they want you to solve for them? Do they want to confirm that the solution that they think is the right choice is actually the right choice? So are they thinking, hey, I need you to help me figure out if this is the right thing to do? Or are they having a hard time just trying to figure out what the actual problem is? And I've had this happen in a variety of different circumstances. I had another good friend who was having a really tough business deal, had a business deal that fell through. And so we went out to a local bar, and we were just sitting there having a beer and talking about it. And I could tell he just wanted to vent. He did not need me to solve any of his problems. He just needed to vent. I've had other circumstances where someone came to me about some marital challenges they were going through, and her problem was that she just didn't know what the problem was. Like, she knew that they had a bad situation, but she needed help figuring out what the actual problem was. And once I was able to help her figure out what the problem was, the solution became a lot easier for her. So really listening and figuring out the actual type of advice and support they need is really crucial. Second thing is to really not judge. We've talked about this before, but when you judge somebody, right, by judgment, what you're doing is you're pointing out mistakes and bad choices that they already, that somebody made. And here's the thing. They already know this already, because if they weren't mistakes, then they wouldn't be coming to you advice. They wouldn't need your advice. So when you're start judging someone like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done this. And why'd you do this? You're just kind of beating them down when they're already beat down. So don't judge your friends. It's just not worth it. Because nobody wants to be judged. None of us are perfect people, so don't judge your friends, okay? The third thing is to support them without taking sides, okay? So let's say someone's going through, this happened to me a few years ago. I had a very good friend going through a major relationship problem with his wife. And when he was on the phone, we're talking, and he was telling me all the bad stuff she was doing, and he was like, she's such a bitch, which, at that point in time, it would have been extremely easy for me to be like, yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, she's the wrong girl for you, blah, 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 blah. But one of the reasons I didn't do that, and I think it's important that you don't do that, is like, you can't take sides. Because if I had said, yeah, you know what, she is a bitch. Well, what happens if he works it out with her? And then I see him the next time, and he's always gonna have it in his head that I called his wife, I called his wife a bitch. Like that's the worst thing in the world. Like, I would never do that. So never, try to support without taking sides, because it just it can come back to bite you in the ass big time. So don't, you want to support them, but don't call their partner a name, or if they're having a problem with their boss or their coworker, don't automatically assume that other person is wrong. Support your buddy, support your friend, but do it in a way where you're not taking sides, and help them through the problem. The fourth thing is to really make sure that you're giving actionable advice. So if someone has a problem and they need help, or they need some advice, well, give them actionable advice. So you want to be saying things like, well, look, what I would do is, blah, blah, blah. Or if this were me, I would blah, 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 blah. The first thing to do is blah, 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 blah. So give them steps, give them actions that they can do right from there. And sometimes the action is to do non-actions. I've had plenty of times I've given people advice, and I'm like, look, the very first thing you should do is you need to spend 2 days and not worry about this and not do a damn thing. Do not call a divorce lawyer. Do not, blow up at your boss. Do not send the email that you're thinking of sending. Don't do anything. For 2 days, promise me you will not do anything. I've had other people where, the actionable advice is like, okay, you're going through all these problems right now. You need to get yourself to an AA meeting immediately. That's the very first thing you should do. Like, that is, so you want to make your advice actionable and concrete. And the next thing you need to do is really to provide context and perspective, right? So when it's your problem, if it's a big deal, you have very little context about what's going on, right? Because you're too close to the situation, or it hurts too much, or you think the world is ending over this problem. I can tell you, when I was in high school, I was dating this girl, Trisha Bigler, and she ended up breaking up with me to go out with some hockey player, and it literally broke my heart in high school. Like, it was like the worst thing ever. I thought the world was ending. It was just brutal. And the challenge about it was that, I just had no context for it. I was way too close to the situation. It hurt way too much. It would have been very easy to give me advice, because talking to someone who is in high school about a high school breakup, I mean, we've all had that. We've all had people who have broken up with them in high school, and it's just freaking brutal. And you've got no context, you've got no perspective. So when you're given advice, you really need to be able to provide context. You need to be able to provide perspective. And this is as an example, Robbie brought this up. Like if you've got a friend who just got dumped by somebody, well, you got to give them context. You got to give them some perspective around that. Well, look, do you have kids with that person? Do you have 10 years invested with that person? Okay, you don't have kids, you don't have 10 years invested. Okay, well, yeah, then it's going to hurt for a little bit of time, but guess what? You're probably going to get over it. You're probably going to meet somebody better. And if it's, you'll probably learn something from this that you'll take into your next relationship. And, I firmly believe that every person that we've ever dated in our lives has taught us something, however small, that makes us a better person and makes us better in our current relationships. So, providing context, providing perspective to people is really, really, really key when you're giving them advice. You need to say, look, you just got fired from your job. I get it, and it sucks, and I'm sure money's going to be rough, and you're going to have to eat macaroni and cheese for a couple months while you look for a new job. But, you're not dying. Your things are going to be okay long term. And if someone's going through something really, really rough, and let's say that they actually are dying or they're really having a bad time, that's going to be harder to provide context and perspective, but you should be able to do it. You just need to think about other things. What are the other ways that you can provide context and perspective to them? So those are some of the ways, to give advice. The other thing on giving advice is you really, the one thing is you also really need to know when to get someone else's help. And you need to know, look, is this person in danger to them? Are they in danger to themselves or others? And if they are, you got to call somebody and help them out. Now, I'll give you an example of this. I had a very good friend who I used to play football with, who was in the Marines, and he was a Marine Corps sniper, and he's been to Afghanistan 7 times, and Iraq 8 times or something. So he's seen a lot of stuff. He's gotten hit a bunch of times, and he came back one time. He had pretty serious PTSD, and he was in a hotel room, and he thought people were coming for him, right? And he thought that people were coming for him. So I immediately went up, met him in the hotel lobby. He had disappeared from his wife and his kids for a couple of days, and he was just holed up in this hotel. So I met him in the hotel, had lunch, and talked to him for a while, and I could tell he was really, really having a tough time. So I sat with him for a little bit and helped him out. And then also, right after that, I called my mom, who works with a lot of veterans and has helped out other veterans in the past. And so I got her involved and she helped him get honorably discharged, and helped him get some long-term care for his PTSD. So at some point when I was giving him advice, I really recognized that look, this guy needs more help than I can provide, and he needs that help now. So I called someone else in. I called my mom in, who's a social worker and has worked with veterans, like I said, and she was able to help him out. So really knowing when someone else needs someone else's help is really key. Knowing when they're in danger themselves or they could be in danger is really key. But, in the other sense, that's usually probably not going to happen to you that often. It's more important that when you're giving advice is that you listen, you don't judge, you support them without taking sides, and you give them actionable advice, and you provide them context, and you provide them perspective. And if you're able to do that, then you're really going to be able to give somebody good advice, no matter what the situation is, whether it's a career thing, a relationship thing, a family thing, whatever it is. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Robbie, I hope you liked it, bud. This has been all about building better friendships. I'll talk more about this in the future. Friendships are really the fun part of our life, right? They really are some of the things that bring the most fun to our lives. And I think about my friendships, and I think about going surfing with my friends, or playing basketball with my friends, or hanging out, listening to music, or watching football with my friends. And it's just having a couple of really, really, really good friends just makes life that much better. You can get through life without a few good friends, but I just think it's so awesome when you've got a couple of good friends. So I hope you've got a couple of good friends in your life, and I hope that and if you don't, I hope that you're able to build those friendships. And I hope this podcast really helped you guys. Okay, thank you so much for checking it out. You can also check us out at online at iTunes. Please leave a review if you like it. And otherwise, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast today. If you want more information, check out my website at jimsimcoe.com, JIMSIM as in Mary, COE.com for more updates and some free guides to help you make your life epic. With that said, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks.